It's a shocking truth, but there are more people incarcerated in the United States of America than there are in China and Russia combined. Now think of that. The land of the free. We have more crimes for more things that most people don't know about. We're going to have a special series this whole week on a nation of criminals, and you don't want to miss any of it. So we'll tell you about that. Well, it may be only a matter of time until the financial crisis in Europe, well, leaks across the oceans and affects us all, including European leaders who haven't been able to come up with any answers to what's going on.
Well, and as weak as the economy is here in America, it's much worse in Europe. Dale Hurd has that story.
In Athens, Greece, a homeless shelter now cares for people who used to belong to the middle class. In Terrassa, Spain, desperate homeowners are banding together in hopes of somehow not becoming homeless. You can see the fear on their faces. It's the same story all across the troubled economies in the Eurozone. While European Union leaders keep announcing their next great solution to the Eurozone debt crisis, nothing has worked. And many economists say nothing will work.
If it was just Spain that needed a bailout, there might be some hope of rescuing the euro. But it's also Greece and Italy, perhaps even France. And there isn't enough money or political will to bail out all of them.
The euro that as we have it now will not survive.
German economist Philipp Bagus is author of The Tragedy of the Euro.
So the problem is that there are too high debts, too high deficits, the states are just too big. This self-destructive setup could have been easily corrected.
Except that Europe remains addicted to the problem, a flawed currency, enormous welfare states, and deficit spending. In Athens, economist Elena Panaridis says Greece's real problem is not a fiscal crisis, but a productivity crisis, because of heavy government regulations and the welfare state.
It is impossible to do business in Greece. It's impossible to be a good entrepreneur in Greece.
Support for radical parties is growing in Greece, and Panaridis says if going back to the old Greek currency, the drachma, is the solution, the medicine could kill the patient.
You will have an actual shock of inflation that will generate a higher level of stress that this country can't take anymore.
Critics say the recent and highly touted EU summit to tackle the Eurozone crisis already stands as yet another failure. Investors have once again pushed Spain's borrowing costs through the roof. Respected economist Nouriel Roubini says in 3 to 6 months, Italy and Spain will no longer be able to borrow money at all. And with France facing similar trouble, some analysts wonder if the new French socialist government has gone insane, chasing business owners from the country by raising taxes on the wealthy and bloating the deficit even further by raising the retirement age. EU leaders still seem unwilling or unable to do what it takes to stop a crisis that is slowly but inevitably spinning out of control. Dale Hurd, CBN News, reporting from Europe.
Boy, it breaks your heart, but it's happening, and it's a contagion that will, as I say, go across the oceans. And I don't know if it'll be contained or whether the hope will be in Asia and old Europe is just going to sink into obscurity, which is probably what's going to happen. But in any event, since most of us have roots in Europe in our families, we hate to see this happen. Well, Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Pat, President Obama wants to extend President Bush's tax cuts for another year, but only for the middle class. He doesn't want to extend them for people making more than $250,000 a year. That would amount to a tax increase for upper-income Americans, and some Senate Democrats may oppose that idea. The president is hoping the move will increase his appeal to middle-class voters and draw a contrast with Mitt Romney and congressional Republicans. The House GOP is expected to push late this month for extending the tax cuts, including for higher-income Americans. President Obama has asked Egypt's new Islamist president for a meeting in September. The president will meet with Mohamed Morsi at the UN in New York. The Egyptians made the announcement after Morsi met with Deputy Secretary of State William Burns in Cairo Sunday. Burns said the U.S. is glad that Morsi has promised to keep international treaties, including the one with Israel. But many in Israel remain concerned. Morsi was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, but he resigned after winning the election. The Brotherhood is a close ally of Hamas, one of Israel's deadliest enemies. Chinese police detained more than 800 people on suspicion of child trafficking. China's Ministry of Public Security says it busted 2 major trafficking rings Thursday. 181 children were rescued across 15 provinces. Chinese courts usually hand out harsh punishments to convicted child traffickers, including the death sentence. Well, the triple-digit heat wave across much of the U.S. is finally coming to an end. Millions of Americans are getting relief today, but it does come at a price. Violent storms have been moving in to break up the scorching temperatures, and we want you to take a look at this. It was a crash of lightning, and it sent players and umpires in this Major League Baseball game in Arlington, Texas, scrambling for the dugouts. Still, the cooler weather will be a welcome relief. Across the country, 2,000 record highs have been set since July 1st, and at least 46 people died nationwide because of the heat. Yeah, Pat, my wife and I were on vacation in the mountains of southern West Virginia this past weekend, and 11 days after that big storm we had, there are thousands and thousands of people there still without power.
Well, I was one of those thousands. That storm hit. What?
You lost power.
Oh, did I ever? You know, we have a generator, and the lightning hit the generator. Ooh. So not only does the power company go out, but the generator went out too.
System, yeah.
So we didn't have any water, and we didn't have any electricity. But it's fun. You kind of read by candlelight, and you cook over a gas stove, and it's kind of like camping out.
Kind of. Kind of like camping out in 106-degree weather.
Well, we didn't have 106. Up in the mountains, it was like 90 and 80, but at night it got cool and it was pleasant. But you know,
but for communities, 11 days after that's gone out, that would get to be old hat.
We got a rented generator and hauled up there and hooked it up, and everything was fine. But the people that didn't have it, they suffer. I mean,
yes. Well, lots of people are suffering from the heat in general. I mean, it's just been so incredibly hot.
Storm, the thing hit. We weren't expecting it. We just didn't look for it, and all of a sudden, bang! The wind hit. And the door burst open and lamps fell off on the floor. And I mean, it was just crazy. And then it was over very quick. But hey, we live in a turbulent world, and if that's the worst that happens to us, we can still praise the Lord for it.
Gwen Wilkerson has passed away. Her husband, the late David Wilkerson, was best known as the founder of Teen Challenge Ministries and the former pastor of Times Square Church. He passed away in April of last year after the two were involved in a car accident. Her children said ever since then, Mom has longed to go to be with Christ in heaven. We are comforted knowing she has entered her reward. Gwen Wilkerson died Thursday at the age of 81. CBN is spreading the gospel in Cambodia through its video ministry. Only 26% of Cambodians have access to electricity. CBN gives local churches a TV set, a DVD player, and batteries. Pastors can then use the equipment to share the gospel through CBN programs like Superbook and Flying House. In the last year, more than 1,000 children have accepted Jesus through the video ministry. And you can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international.